This is a quick guide for farmers thinking about certifying organic crops. The first year of organic certification is usually the hardest. You have to try and read and understand the rules, find a lot of records, and answer a lot of questions. So my goal here is to give you an introduction to the rules, the records, and common resources. The National Organic Program is the federal regulation you're going to have to follow if you want to sell crops as organic in the United States. The NOP has staff under the USDA AMS, and they oversee certifiers that oversee applicants such as farmers. There are about 50 organic certifiers that you can pick from in the United States. And you should know that farmers can help shape the regulations by talking to the USDA NOP through public comment periods, through complaints if they see something wrong. Or there's the National Organic Standards Board. It's an independent board that meets twice a year around the country, and there's public comment periods. I'll have some links in my description for the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990 that came from Congress that set up the NOP and the NOP rule itself, and some other resources. Organic records are a big stumbling block for people just starting out certifying organic. The main rules that you would need to look up are 205, 103, and 205, 201. And the main document you'll be dealing with is the Organic System Plan. The Organic System Plan has questions that are required by the NOP on your practices, monitoring, and it includes supporting documents that talk about just everything that happened on those fields. Any questions on the OSP that are yes, no, you need to mark a box. If there's a text box and it doesn't apply to you, write not applicable. There's an agreement that you'll need to sign with the certifier that lays out the responsibilities of both parties, and you'll need to pay fees. That's all part of an initial application to a certifier. So you can request those kinds of forms from a certifier. So what I just described is point one here. You're going to get an application together and fees and send it to a certifier. And this needs to happen annually. Then the certifier is going to do a pre-inspection review, and they'll tell you if it's complete or not. If it isn't, they'll come back to you with questions. If it is, they'll send it to an inspector who's going to go on your site and make sure that what you set on paper can be viewed at your place. The inspector will complete a report, and then it'll go back to the certifier. They'll look at it compared to the Organic System Plan and make sure you've paid your fees, then they'll make a decision. They'll either grant certificates, deny them, or grant them with conditions called non-compliances. This is a close-up of the inspection process. An inspector is going to need to schedule a time when someone who's knowledgeable at the farm will be there. Then they're going to explain the role of an inspector in an opening meeting, how confidentiality is kept, that they're not a consultant, that they don't make the certification decision, but that they can explain the organic rules. Next, the inspector is going to need access to all of the fields, including transitional and conventional, all the equipment, all the storage, and records, sometimes called an audit trail. The inspector is going to try to do two audit trail exercises. The first one is usually called a traceability audit, and it looks at a crop sale and tries to link it with documents through storage, harvest, planting, back to seed. The next exercise is usually called an inventory balance, and it looks at total numbers. So total harvested, total sold, and how does it compare to what's in storage. Then the inspector will talk to you in an exit interview and explain any risks to organic integrity that they saw. You and the inspector will sign this. This document doesn't mean you're certified. The inspector will send a report to a certifier who will make the decision, and you'll get a copy of the report later. If you can understand my logic with the weed control rules, you can understand pretty much any organic rule. So first you have to know what you can't do. Then you have to have a plan for preventative or cultural practice, and then there are some synthetic materials that are allowed. So number one, there's a national list of allowed and prohibited materials. On that list, some natural materials are actually banned. In general, synthetic materials are banned, so they aren't even on the list. It's important to talk to a certifier about what's allowed or not, because misusing an input can kick you out of compliance for 3 years, and then you'll be basically starting from scratch again with the transition. So, number two, you have to have some kind of preventative practice documented in your organic system plan to show that you did any number of these things, and this is not an exhaustive list in number two. So then if you document that those preventative practices don't work, there are a few synthetic materials that are allowed, and there are a lot of natural materials that aren't on the national list but that are allowed. The national list is overseen by the National Organic Standards Board, so that's another reason why it's important to pay attention to what they do. Let's try my logic again with fertilizers. So first you have to know what you can't do, and that is, in general, synthetic materials are banned, and there are some natural materials that are banned. Then you have to have a plan for improving your land, and things like crop rotation, animals, and minerals, naturally mined minerals, are allowed. And those kinds of practices can be found under 205, 203, and 205 for soil fertility and crop rotation. Then there are a few synthetic materials that are allowed in organic micronutrients, namely, if you can document a deficiency. So that kind of prevents over-application. And they have to be on the national list. A resource that you can use is the Organic Materials Review Institute. They're an independent group that compares inputs to the national list and organic rules, and if there are any restrictions. A couple of things to note with OMRI certificates are the expiration date and restrictions. Inputs that a farmer uses can affect a processor that's putting a label on a product. So it's important for everyone to know, what does the label tier mean? At the top you have 100% organic. That's the highest, and the use of the USDA organic seal is optional. Next, just plain organic means 95% or more of ingredients in a product are organic. Then if it says made with organic, that means only 75 or 70% organic ingredients are organic. Less than 70%, that means you can't say organic prominently on a package. You can only say it in the ingredient list. An important phrase to look for on a package underneath the manufacturer name is certified organic by, and then the certifier. And you can use that certifier name and the name of the company on the Organic Integrity Database. It's a public database that shows who's certified organic. The information is supplied to the database by certifiers. And another thing, salt and water aren't included in these percentages. You can't actually certify salt and water as organic. The process of organic certification will typically cost a grain farm of about 1,000 acres $1,000. This is just based on my own personal experience. Different certifiers are going to have different types of fees, so you can ask them for their fee schedules, and they're required to provide them. Some are based on your organic revenue, some are based on your acres, some are just flat across the board. Usually inspectors' fees, if they have independent inspectors, they will be additional. And being independent contractors, they can vary quite a bit. So if certification is costly, some certifiers have in-house programs to help, or the most popular is probably the organic cost share that comes from the Farm Bill, and it reimburses $750 or 75% of your certification costs, whichever is cheaper, smaller. And it's a pretty simple process with the Kansas Department of Agriculture where I'm at. You just have to fill out a form, provide your organic certificate, and invoices that have been paid. And with that, that's the overview of organic certification in the United States. You can email me or comment with questions.